Hi, it's Les Adams here. In response to requests that I've had, I'm going to give you a slightly more detailed explanation of the equipment in the OnAirExperience studio. This is the studio where we make, where I make my radio show on Solar Radio, and where lots of other DJs come and make shows. People like Jeff Young, Ian Johns, Steve Bright, and Kevin Alder will come and make their radio shows here for various networks. So we'll start with the basic mixer. This is the Denon DNX 1600. This was chosen for two reasons really. First of all, and most important, the audio quality of this mixer is quite superb. For those of you who understand the technical side of things, the mixing is digital and it operates at 96 kilohertz 24-bit. Now it doesn't matter if you don't understand those figures. If I tell you that CD runs at 44.1 kilohertz as opposed to this, which is 96, and CDs are 16-bit and this is 24-bit, so it far exceeds the audio quality of digital recording to CD. So we start off with a very good source. This mixer was chosen in preference to typical broadcast mixers because it's more DJ friendly. Most DJs who use this studio are probably from a club background, or this mix will be more familiar to them in terms of operation and controls. You have the fairly basic sliders here which control the volume levels. Then you have the controls here which are the tone controls. The mixer has fader start, which means that you don't have to press play on the CD player or on the MP3 player. When you turn the fader up, the music starts. You can control the level, and when you pull it down it stops, and you can go on to the next deck. We'll show you the decks in a moment that we use, the digital ones. Another good thing about this mixer is the matrix system at the top here. It has input selectors here which enable you to route any of the equipment connected to the mixer to any channel. So you could have deck 1 here, deck 2 here, or you could have deck 1 here and deck 2 there. You can configure it how you want it, how you want to set it up according to what you're using. It also has a built-in effects processor here, which to be honest we don't use very much, but you can apply things like echo to your voice or to the music. But it's a little bit gimmicky, so we tend not to use that. We have our own little custom built panel at the back here with these 4 illuminated knobs. These 2 knobs here switch the fader start between the MP3 system, which we use a system called Tractor 2 or Tractor Pro 2. With the button down, the fader would operate Tractor Pro 2. With the button up, it remote starts the turntables. So that would be turntable 1 remote start, and that would be MP3 player 1, and then the fader would operate it here. So it'll either be turntable or MP3 depending on where you have this button selected, and these are the 2 sort of main music channels here. Okay, on the right here there are another 2 illuminated buttons. The one here, the blue one, fires jingles. I'll show you the jingle machine in a while. It's a virtual cart machine. Works like the old-fashioned jingle players, but when you push the button it will fire a jingle will play. More about that in a while. This is the microphone master switch. Now, as opposed to a conventional system where you have a fader you turn up for microphones, in this studio the microphone levels are all preset for each presenter, so you don't have to worry about volumes. All you do is you switch on this switch, but this switch has a lot of functions. When you press that on, it turns the mics on. Yes, you'd expect it to, as it is the mic switch, but it also turns on a red light there. There's another one there up on the wall to let people know in the room, in the studio, that the microphones are live, so be quiet. And there's another light outside the door of the studio to tell people not to come in when the red light is on. The other thing that happens when you turn this switch on is that it mutes the loudspeakers in the studio. So if we've got a track playing, when you turn the mics on, you see the meters there, the music going, when I turn the mics on, the music's still playing, but the speakers go off, and that puts the mics live, so we don't get any feedback from the loudspeakers to the microphone. Then when you switch the mics off, the music comes back on again. Just behind the mixer here in this rack, at the bottom of the rack, is a Denon DNF650R digital audio recorder. Now this machine is a very, very high quality digital audio recorder. It's what we record all the radio shows on. Again, it operates at a very high sampling and bit rate, far in excess of the quality of CD. It operates at 48K and 24-bit. Just to explain very, very briefly, if you just understand the numbers here, CD, which is 16-bit, each bit of information, or each bit in the bit depth, carries something like about 8,000 possibilities of sort of colour of sound, if you like. 24-bit, which is what we use, is about 8.5 million, so far in excess of what is capable on CD. In fact, it's more the kind of bit rate that's normally used for DVD recording, but we use it because we like to start with the best possible quality recordings. Recordings go onto this USB drive here. This is a Sony 16GB drive, but this machine also has an SDHD slot here, SDHC, I beg your pardon, which is also 16 gig. This machine will record continuously for about 10 hours at its highest quality. So that's the digital recorder. Above the digital recorder is a Denon DNHC4500. Now this is the controller. This will be very familiar to you. Some of you, it looks very much like the Denon CD players. Well, this is a CD player controller like the conventional Denon, but this one also operates the playout system we use, Tractor Pro 2. There's a little switch here, this red switch, the source switch. If we push that in and then turn this knob, see at the moment it says PC, we turn that knob and push the enter button, that will now operate CD player number 1. So you can switch between the MP3 player and the CD player, and whichever you select will then be remote controlled from the fader, like so. This also has the sound card built in and the digital to analog converters for the main music source from Tractor, and that again is 96 kilohertz 24-bit. So we're running at a very, very high digital standard right the way through the audio chain. Above that we have the meter bridge. Now this is a BBC specification meter. There are two, one for left, one for right. These are called peak program meters. The difference between these and a regular meter is that they are much slower in their return from full scale. So if I give that some music, if I stop the music, you see it takes a while to recover. The idea of that is that it kind of sits on top of the peak of the sound, so you can get a much more accurate reading of where the peak levels are to make sure the broadcast is at exactly the right level and doesn't go too high and cause distortion. Now to the right of that we have this rack here. This is the audio processing rack. At the top, this is quite simple. This is a 4-channel headphone amplifier. This one is a Behringer. Now this is for controlling the volume of guests in the studio, so we can have up to 4 guests with headphones on, and each guest can have a different volume in their headphones according to their personal taste and requirements on whether or not they're deaf. That's for the guests. We've got another amplifier for the main presenter, which I'll show you later. Now down here we have these processors here. These two are identical. They are both compressor peak limiter de-esser units made by a company called BSS. The model is DPR402. These were chosen particularly or specifically because they are about the Rolls-Royce of analog audio compression. Let's be clear about that. These are analog units, not digital. That makes them very, very high quality. They actually cost, each one of these strips is over £1,000. So there's 3 of them here. And what these do, the top one is set to run in independent mode. So this side works separately from that. And what we've got is microphone number 1, the main presenter's microphone, goes through the left compressor. Now what a compressor does is that it controls the volume of the microphone, the dynamics of the microphone. Now just to give you an example of that, if I switch the studio mic on and you watch that meter, now that is with the compressor on, you can see that the volume of the microphone, whether I talk quietly or if I speak up quite loud, still maintains a constant level. Now if I switch the compressor out, that's with the compressor off. Now you can see when I'm talking quietly, we're getting quite a full scale. But if I speak up, you can see we're going right into the red, and we're getting a red light saying that's much too loud. So if we put the compressor back on, there, that is controlling the volume of the microphone. So if I speak quietly, it turns me up. And if I speak up loudly, it doesn't distort like that. So that's what the compressor does. So it helps you to be heard and controls levels so they don't distort. So that does microphone number 1, the main presenter. This one here is for the second microphone, for the second presenter. If there's 2 of you presenting a show, then you've got separate control of compression on each microphone. These also have a thing called a de-esser. S sounds and T sounds, S particularly, can be very sibilant. When you say S, S, the levels can creep up very high. What this does, it compresses the S's only. You can adjust the frequencies according to whether you've got a male voice, female voice, and adjust it to the particular voice that you're using. And it kind of turns down the S's. You still hear the S's, but they don't sort of stick out, stand out, and cause distortion. Now the unit below it is exactly the same. It's another BSS DPR 402. Now that one is applied to the music, and it's works on a similar principle. When the music is playing, you can see here on the left, the music is peaking to that red light there, which means that it's working to what's called the threshold of the compressor. The threshold is the point at which the compressor will start to work. So up to that red dot, the compressor isn't actually doing anything. But if I was to turn the music up to the point where it would normally distort, I'm going to do that by turning the mixer controls up. You will see what you get now is you see those red lights to the right that are going in reverse direction. That shows how much it is turning the music down by. And again, if we watch that on the main meter, if I turn that up loud, if I was to switch the compressor off, the music would go much too loud and distort. So that basically, it's a kind of a barrier through which the level of the music is not permitted to pass. It's also called a limiter. The unit at the bottom here is a noise gate. This one has a bit of history. This was actually purchased from Tori Amos's studio down in Devon. They were selling off some equipment that was surplus to requirement. These days a lot of studios are going for software, compressors and limiters and gates. I prefer hardware. It's more hands-on, and it also sounds better. To my ear it sounds better, or at least if you get the best analog processors, they sound better than the onboard sort of plug-in digital ones. And this is wired to the output of the compressor. Now if you look just where my finger is here now, when I turn the music on, you see a little triangle comes on. Now that triangle, which looks pink on here, it's actually red but it looks pink on the video, shows that the gate is open and it is letting music pass. Now if I turn the music down below the threshold, you'll see that little triangle will go out. Now the gate has now turned off the music feed from the output of the compressor to the mixer. What that does is that any residual noise that is in any of the equipment before this is turned off. There is no noise. So if you're just talking on the microphone with no music playing in the background, it makes sure that the background is absolutely dead quiet. There's no hiss from any equipment, no noise, and it just makes the microphone sound clearer to have it against what we call a black audio background. This unit here is a Sony line mixer. This actually isn't used for anything that goes to air. This is a monitoring mixer, so that in the studio we can listen to, for example, the output of the two computer sound cards, or there's a DAT machine and a mini disc machine as well, which feed through here, just for monitoring. We don't ever put this to air, although it's perfectly good enough quality to. It's not used for that purpose. It's just a sub mixer for listening to things in the studio. Now at the bottom we have this wonderful thing. This is an Aphex oral exciter with big bottom. I kid you not, that is what it's called. This is a sort of a harmonic processor, which is, as you can see, we have it protected here behind a metal box, so that it can't be fiddled with. These require quite critical setting, and what they do is they enhance the microphone sound. This one is set up specifically for the microphones that we use, and it just makes the voice a bit clearer when you're talking over music. With it switched on, you don't really hear what it's doing, but if you switch it off, you notice that it's gone. It just improves the clarity by adding harmonics to your voice. So that's the again used for the microphone processing. So this is all microphone processing up here, and this all down here is mic processing. Now to my right here we have a Denon twin CD player, which is controlled, as I showed you earlier, with the other Denon controller behind the mixer. So that's just a regular CD player. And here we have two more noise gates. This gate here is on the output of the mixer I just showed you, so that when there's nothing going through the mixer, this turns the mixer off, so there is no noise from the mixer. The one at the top here is connected to the studio monitors. Now at the moment you can see we have these green lights for left and right channel, which show that the monitors are on and active. So if I play some music, you can hear the music playing. Now when I turn the microphone on, push that mic switch that I showed you earlier, this one here, when I push this microphone button, you will see that those lights go across to red, and they've cut off the sound to the speakers. So it's like an audio gate. That's what it is. It's called a noise gate. So when you switch the microphone off, the studio monitors come back on again. So that's basically an automatic device for turning the monitors off when you turn the mic on. Above that we have this computer monitor here, which is running a program called Adobe CS6. Now this is a digital recording and editing program. I've just set that into record. If I give that an input, you can see the sound wave of the music there recording, and once you've finished recording, it goes into edit mode, and you can cut things, move them around, and basically edit out any mistakes in a radio program. You can also change the volume, so if you want it louder, you can bring down this menu here, and you can go to an amplify section. You can turn it up. If we click that now, you'll see that this gets bigger and louder. So you can, if you've got a track that's too quiet or something that's too loud, you can turn it up and down. It does lots of other things as well, but mainly for editing. Now we also use this program for running safety copies of a radio show. So whilst the Denon recorder is the one which actually records the master, this one will be running in the background as a sort of a ghost copy, and it does it via this device here, which is a Focusrite Sapphire 2i, which is a digital to analog converter. Very, very high quality. Again, it runs at 48K 24-bit. So we're getting an identical quality copy on the computer with this program to the Denon recorder, and it's there in case anything goes wrong with the Denon. When you're recording a radio show, you don't want to get to the end and find out that it didn't come out, so we run a backup on that. These are our studio monitors. They're Mackie HR824s, very high quality, high resolution studio monitors. They have their own built-in amplifiers. They're what's called active loudspeakers. They have 2 amplifiers in each cabinet. There's a 150 watt amplifier driving the bass, and there's a 100 watt amplifier driving the mid-range and high frequency unit. And these are near field monitors. They're designed to be right in front of you, very close. Now we come to our playout system. Now this is a system which may be familiar to many club DJs. This is a system called Tractor Pro 2. It's what I also use to play out on a laptop, but we use it in the studio for playing music on the radio shows. It's controlled from the Denon controller here. Now if I turn this knob here, you will see the band there selecting a track to play. So you can scroll up and down until you get the track you want, and then you push that button in and it will load that track ready to play, like so on. So that's Tractor Pro 2 on that screen. That, by the way, is the front door. If anybody rings the front door, what happens is this light flashes. There's no sound, it just flashes a light, a bright light, so you can so if anybody rings the door while the microphone's switched on, it doesn't interfere with the recording. On the left monitor here we have scripts, show time remaining, which is the big display you can see counting down. So if we were recording a radio show now, that's telling us we've got 1 hour 35 minutes and 24 seconds left of the show before the end. So as you're getting towards the end of the show, you can look at the times of the songs that you've got left to play, and that will tell you how much of each, how many you can fit in. So that's a countdown timer. This is the script. DJs will bring in their scripts and we put them up on the computer screen so they can scroll up and down and see what they've got to say. On the left hand side, this vertical thing is a digital level meter. So that's showing the level of the digital recording as opposed to the BBC meters here, which show an analog level. These are a digital level. And then at the top we have a little clock which shows show time. Again, this is the time of the program, not the real time in the studio. So if you're recording a program that'll go from 8 till 10 in the evening, we would set that to start at 8 o'clock, and then you can see the time. So if you're giving time checks during a pre-recorded show, you know where you are as far as broadcast time is concerned. Now there's a third computer monitor up here. This is the jingle player, a cart machine. All the coloured boxes here have different jingles in them. Now this one is for my solo radio show. So if I move the cursor and just highlight a jingle here, for example, we've got this one here, everybody's favourite. It says Full Fat Funk. That is controlled from the button I showed you earlier down here, this blue button. When I press that blue button, it will go
Full Fat Funk. It's Dance Floor Classics.
And then you could highlight any of the other jingles that you might want to play on the show. Like we've got one here, where are we? Dance Floor Classics, stereo.
Dance Floor Classics.
See, it highlights it while it's playing, and then when it's finished playing, it will go out. So that's your jingle player. Again, it shows the clock up here shows program time, not real time. It's not actually 6 o'clock. That would be set to the time of the broadcast, so the presenter can see what time it is in the show he's actually making. Okay, now coming down to the left, we've got another rack of equipment here. Now this is all to do with microphones, really, apart from the unit at the top and bottom. The unit at the top is a master power switch for the mixer and the loudspeakers. It's very important when you're turning a studio on and off that the speakers and the mixer are not on when you're turning anything else on or off. So if you just hit that switch there and turn the power off, that will turn off the studio monitors, the power to the studio monitors and the mixer. So then it's safe to turn other things on and off. Below that is a Focusrite move that shadow a little bit, is a Focusrite microphone preamp. Now this one is being used on the second microphone in the studio. For those of you who listen to my show and know Brett Baker, this is the preamplifier which controls the microphone that he uses. Microphones require preamplification before they go into a compressor. So this boosts the signal from the microphone, and the studio microphones also require a voltage to drive them. They're condenser microphones, and this will supply the 48 volts through the microphone cable to power the microphone, and it amplifies the signal to a level that the compressors can accept. Now this device below it with these flashing lights here is a rather clever little device. It's a Drawmer quad gate. Now the way we've got it wired in the studio, you can see as I talk that left hand one is flashing. If I talk a bit louder, the other one will come on as well. This is the main presenter microphone which is closest to me, and that is the second microphone. These automatically turn the microphone on and off as you talk. So if you stop talking, it turns the mic off, and when you start talking it turns it on again. Now this is so that if you pause while you're talking, you don't get any background noise from anything else that's happening in the studio, and it also eliminates any noise from any other equipment that might be wired in the chain. But this is just showing that the microphones are working. These then are fed into these two units here. This is microphone 1, as is this, and this is a block gate. Now at the moment you can see we've got red lights on here. This means that the microphones are turned off. Even though they're reading here, the output of those microphones is blocked from the mixer. And when I operate the microphone switch down here, what it does is it unblocks that gate. And you can see those lights go green. That means that the signal is now passing to the mixer and live on air. So they're still being gated. So if you stop talking, the microphone goes off. But when you talk, the signal will be passed to the mixer as it is now, because these gates are letting the microphones go through. But once I turn the main microphone switch off, like so, even though the microphones are still working, they're blocked to the mixer. So you get no sound through the mixer from the mics. Below here is it's the equivalent of this, but this is the one that we use for the main presenter microphone. The main presenter microphone I'll show you shortly is a Neumann U87, which is very, very high quality microphone. It's about the finest microphone in the world, and requires a very high quality preamplifier to get the best sound from it. This is a Tony Larkin Audio VP5051. It's a valve unit as opposed to transistors or ICs. It runs on valves, which give a lovely smooth sound, a very clean sound on the microphone. And it also has this section here, which is an equalizer, so we can adjust the tone of the microphone. Now we found that for most male voices, we want to trim the bass down a little bit. Now we can adjust the frequency here. This is set at 120 Hertz. So we've cut about 2 dB at 120 Hertz. Then we find that boosting the upper mids and the low highs gives extra clarity to the voice. So here the frequency selected is 3 kHz, and we've got about 2 decibels of boost. This one is 8 kHz, and again about 2 decibels of boost. And this just puts like a hump in the frequency response of the microphone. It just brings out the clarity in voices. The unit at the bottom here is a fuse panel. Every piece of equipment in the studio has its own dedicated fuse. So if a piece of equipment goes wrong and blows a fuse, it will only blow that fuse, not the main studio fuse, so everything else will remain working. If your CD player goes wrong, or one of your CD players goes wrong and it blows a fuse, everything else in the studio will continue to work, and you'll get a red light. If I simulate it by unscrewing that fuse, you can see the red light comes on. That means the fuse is blown. That's actually the computer monitor that's gone off. But I put that back in again now. You can see the green light comes back on, which shows that that fuse is okay and working, and the monitor's back on. Everything in the studio has a separate fuse. Right. Keyboard. We use the Microsoft wireless keyboards, which are very handy. You can just move them around, very, very convenient. Now down here we have two little amplifiers. These are Class A amplifiers, very, very high quality. This one here drives the main presenter's headphones. Now we use these here. These are Sony MDR 7520 headphones. These are the top of the range. In fact, they stopped making them now, but they were top of the Sony professional range. They cost about £500. So to get the best sound from them, you need a very good amplifier, which is why we have this dedicated unit here. Now this amplifier can also be used as a preamplifier to drive loudspeakers, so we have a second one. This is an identical unit, you can't really see it. It's the same thing, but it's in black. And this one is wired from the output of the mixer and drives the studio monitors. We've got this because the audio quality of the amplifier in the Denon mixer, it's a great mixer, but the audio quality from the studio monitor output isn't all that great for the studio speakers, so we've got this separate one, which is a much higher quality unit. Okay, moving around to the right of the studio, we have the trusty Technics SL 1200 Mark IIs. I've owned this pair since 1984. They're still going strong. They're fitted with Shure WHLB cartridges, which are about the best of the Pro cartridges, and I think so anyway. I like the sound on those. So that's the turntables. And if we move around the studio again, behind me to my left we have another rack of equipment. Let me just switch this on so you can see it all better. Now the top unit here with all these red lights is a noise gate. This again is like the other noise gates. When there's no sound passing through it, it turns it off so there's no background noise anywhere, and as soon as you put sound through it, the gate will switch on. Below here is another compressor. This one works on guest microphones, so apart from the two main presenters in the studio, if you have guests interviewing people, this is on their microphones to control their volume. If they speak loud or quiet, this will automatically turn them up and down. Then below that, this dark thing here with the green light, you can't really see on the video, is a Sony mini disc player. Not very often used these days, but they were very, very popular in broadcasting. This is the mini disc. And occasionally we get people who hire the studio who still have jingles and things on mini disc, and we use this to dub them onto digital so we can use them in the cart player. So it's handy to have here, but it doesn't get used very much. Similarly with this equipment here, this is a Panasonic DAT machine. This is actually the best DAT machine ever made. It's the Panasonic 3800. Very, very good DAT machine, but again not used very much these days. Up here we have a microphone mixer and some chewing gum. Microphone mixer, this is for controlling the individual volume of guests. We can have up to 3 additional guests in the studio, and you can control the volume of each of their microphones there. That then goes to the compressor, which looks after the final level, but this means you can adjust the volume for each individual presenter. And we've got a little mixer here which mixes all of this equipment back to the main studio desk. And last but by no means least, the wonderful microphone. This is the Neumann U87. It's what all the top recording studios in the world use. It's the benchmark of microphones, and the retail price is over £2,000. You can get them for a little bit less than that now, but we have this. I bought this some years ago when I was doing a project where I needed some very good recording recording quality, and I've always kept it. So there it is. That's what we use now, the Neumann U87. Well, I hope that was of interest to you. If you want to have a closer look at the studio, or you want to hire the studio, you can find all the details at the website, which is OnAirExperience.co.uk or OnAirStudio.co.uk. Thank you very much for watching.